Govinda Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai. Yesterday when I talked to you about the 7th chapter of the Gita, I talked in general about how there's two kinds of things we find in the Gita. There are bits and pieces of philosophy and instructions of Krishna that we can easily understand how we're supposed to apply them in our daily life. And then there's the higher philosophy, which it's a little harder to understand how it relates to everyday life. Today, as probably all of you would have heard, there was an unfortunate event during the Boston Marathon in the city of Boston, and there were casualties and dozens of injuries. And I'm going to digress a little bit from the plan tonight. I won't be sticking exactly to the 8th chapter, but it's the right time when something like this happens that we have to take the philosophy of the Gita, take the philosophy of Hinduism, and try to make sense out of such events and answer our questions that naturally come in our mind. Questions about God, questions about other human beings, questions about good and evil. This is the time we need to apply this philosophy. If our philosophy cannot answer these questions, then it has no practical relevance in our life. Relevance means that, okay, it's a nice sounding philosophy, but when you bring it down to ground level in day-to-day life, does it make sense? Does it work in day-to-day life? Does it answer our daily questions? So I would say that in fact, when something like this happens, I cannot find satisfactory answers anywhere else other than, not in full. The only place I find answers in full that really satisfy the questions that come in my mind is in the philosophy of the Gita and the other Sanskrit scriptures. Now, first of all, let's understand a couple of basic points. First, take human beings. Human beings are made up of a couple of different things, according to our own Hindu philosophy. We have a soul, and that's our original self, or our true self. So the soul, you can't see the soul, but that's who you are. And it's in here, you can say in the center of your chest, like a spark. Like when you watch a fire burn, a wood fire, not a gas fire. You watch a fire burn and a spark comes out of the fire. That spark, if you can imagine something infinitely smaller than that. The soul is so small, but that's like our soul, a spark of divine life. And that is inside this physical body. So the body and the soul are two totally separate things, although they're joined right now. But the soul is one thing and the body is another. Something like how, see, we're inside this temple. We're inside this building. So the temple is around us and we're inside the temple. Like that, you, meaning the soul, you are inside your body. And the body is around your soul. Or like the car you came in. You rode in a car to get here. The car is one thing, it's a conveyance, something you use to get around, but you sit in the car. Similarly, our soul is inside our body. In addition to the body, the soul has one other main thing, that's the mind. Obviously, you don't think with your body, right? You think with your mind, but you don't even think with your brain. Because brain is part of your body. It's an organ of your body. There's something more subtle than that. More subtle than synapses firing or neurons. More subtle than that is your mind. It's so subtle that you can't take a picture of it. You can't, there's no scientific means of detecting the existence of the mind other than it works through your brain, so you can measure the brain activity and get some guess what's happening in the mind. So the body obeys the mind, right? The body just does what we decide, what our mind tells it. And the mind gets its life from the soul, but the soul itself, although that's our true self, the soul is not really the doer, because it's with our mind that we think, and our mind commands the body. So it's the mind which is the doer of our actions. That's very important to understand, because everybody's soul is initially or originally the same, meaning we're all equal. Everybody's soul is equal. But our minds are different. That's why we have different personalities. You'll remember yesterday that I told you Maya has 3 gunas. You remember the 3 gunas of Maya? Yes.
Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
Yes, Sattvic, Rajas, and Tamas qualities. Those are the 3 qualities. You can say good is Sattvic. The other one, tamas, that's bad or evil. And in between, rajas, you can say is selfish, meaning not hurtful to others, but not helpful to others. So just in between, selfish, without being good or bad. Those are the 3 qualities of Maya, and those 3 qualities are in everybody's mind. This is a key point. Your soul is divine. So the soul doesn't have sattva raj tam, but the mind has sattva raj tam, because the mind is a product of the Mayic energy. So it means that we all have the potential for good, selfishness, and evil, because those 3 qualities are in the mind of every person. God didn't put them there. I want you all, kids, I want you to understand this point very carefully. If you understand these points, you won't have these doubts about God in your mind. God didn't put the sattva raj tam in our minds because Maya was never created or invented by God. Maya is one thing that exists, right? The universe is a product of Maya. Maya is the energy. Like you can say this plant came from a seed, right? The seed was the original thing and it grew into this plant. Something like this, there was original Mayic energy and it grew into the form of the universe, or evolved or expanded. It's called the original material energy. So that original energy, it goes through cycles. This right here is the evolved state of that energy. Now if this plant went backwards into its seed form, and then again grew into a plant, and then again went back to its seed, that's what happens in the world. The world is manifested like it is now, and then it goes back into the subtle form, you can say, where there's no physical thing manifested, but the energy is still there. So we call that the destruction of the universe. Nothing is really destroyed, it's just that the energy goes back into that seed form. Then again it's activated. So God does the activating and the deactivating of the Mayic energy, but He never created that energy to start with. Nor did He create any soul. Our scriptures insist again and again and again, like in Gita, in the 2nd chapter, Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah. Nothing can ever be created or destroyed, not essentially. Okay, you can create this, you can say this microphone was created. Okay, but did the inventor of this microphone invent the substance that this is made of? No. He took an existing thing and just recombined it, right? Similarly, the Mayic energy has existed forever. It wasn't even created by God. He just activates it, and then with God's help, it evolves into the form of the universe. He never created it, and he never created any souls, because you can't, even God doesn't create something out of nothing. So it means that these three entities have existed forever. God, the souls, and Maya. So if God had created either Maya or the souls, then you could question him, that why did you make us like this? Why did you put us here in this world? Or why did you make Maya to have not only sattvic quality, but also tamas quality? Why did you make Maya like that? Well, you didn't make anything like that. Maya exists eternally. So this point, although it's difficult to grasp the concept of eternity, it's very important to accept that, at least on some level, that whatever is has existed forever and will continue to exist forever, whether it's us, God, or the material energy, the universe. What that means is that, getting back to our mind has those three qualities, sattva, raj, tam. God didn't put those qualities there. Because our mind is made of Maya, it has those qualities just inborn, okay? They're there. Now it becomes a question of which of those qualities do you develop in your own mind. Some people have developed the sattvic quality more. Some have developed the rajas quality more. Some have developed the tamas quality more. So if someone has developed the sattvic quality more, then they'll behave more according to that. They'll be generous, they'll be helpful, they'll be honest, they'll be lively and active in a good way, meaning they won't be lazy, they'll be active, they'll be responsible, helpful. All those good qualities are the product of this sattvic quality of the mind. How do you activate that quality, or how do you develop it? It's up to you. Nobody else can give you that quality. So the only thing you have to do is have sattvic thoughts and think sattvic things and do sattvic things. That's it. What else can you do? It means if you have good thoughts, you're strengthening the good quality of your mind. If you do good things, if you do sattvic actions, you're strengthening the sattvic quality of your mind. And that carries forward for lifetimes. You don't just develop your personality in one lifetime. Why do you think someone is born in this world who is more of a bad type person and someone else is more of a good type person? It's because that good person developed the sattvic quality in their mind over many lifetimes by being good, doing good, thinking good. And the bad person, they did the opposite. So you can develop the tamas quality in your mind by having bad thoughts, doing bad things. You just keep strengthening that quality until it becomes the dominant quality in your mind and you just become like that. Then you have to struggle hard to counteract that. A bad person can become good, but they have to go against the flow of now how they've made their mind. But they can correct that. And a good person can become bad also. A good person who has developed that sattvic quality, they can start having tamas thoughts and start going in that direction. So we are changing the quality of our mind every second. Literally, you become what you think. So this is one important thing, and this is like a concept we have to understand, that God doesn't make us the way we are. Although He's giving life to our soul, He is giving life to us, but He's not controlling our thoughts. We have free will. We do our own thinking. We do our own speaking. We do our own actions. And accordingly, we develop our mind in one direction, in a good direction, or in a bad direction. And accordingly, that's how we behave with other people in the world. So God is not responsible for any action of any person in this world. He doesn't control anybody's actions or thinking. We're in control of our own actions. So this is, you can say, step one in understanding something, whether it's something like what happened today, or all the good and bad we see in the world. It's not a question of why does God allow this to happen? Or why does God make this to happen? When God has given us free will, and He's also made sure that we understand, whether it's through our own Hindu scriptures or through other religious scriptures in the world, everybody knows that they're going to be punished or rewarded for their bad or good actions. God has made sure we know that. So He's given us free will, but He's also made sure we know there are consequences for our actions. And He gives us the guidelines to follow. But in the end, God does not control anybody's mind because we are individual souls. We have our own free will. Of course, we're free to think and do anything, but once we've done that action, we're not free to choose whether we suffer or enjoy the consequences. Once you perform an action, you have to receive the consequences. And those consequences normally come in your future lifetimes. Although you get an immediate mental consequence for something you think or do, meaning every thought changes the quality of your mind, and when you do something bad, you also feel guilt. Even a bad person feels guilty, although they get some enjoyment. A bad person does get some enjoyment out of making someone else suffer. But at the same time, he knows it's wrong, and that disturbs his mind also. And a good person feels good helping others, so they get immediate peace of mind by helping another person. But there's an additional physical consequence, which comes as a reward for good actions or as some kind of suffering as a punishment for bad actions, which comes in our future lifetimes. And this happens exactly according to our karma, exactly according to the actions we perform. Good or bad things happen to us. So it's not a question of any whim of God or even God teaching us a lesson. It's just the natural outcome of our own past good and bad actions. Another thing to understand is that when someone comes into this world, they come into this world with a definite, fixed period of time that they're going to have this life. So there's no early departures, you can say. Someone is given a human birth, it's decided already that this person will have this body for this amount of time and then they'll go. And when they go, it's not the end of them, it's only the end of their stay in this body. Just like you trade your car in and get another car, or you shed your old clothes and get new clothes, similarly your soul changes bodies. So that's part of the soul's journey. We receive a body and we're given this life for a certain period of time. And when that's over, then we go on to the next life, and what we take with us is our karma, our actions, and that determines how we're reborn, in what family, in what country, in what circumstances, and then what things, what good or bad things will happen to us in our next life. That's again determined by the good and bad things we did in this life. So these things help us understand events like what happened today. Yet there's still pain. Even if someone intellectually understands this kind of thing, when someone has lost someone close to them, such intellectual understanding is of little comfort in the moment. Just like Ram said to Bali's wife, Tara, that, why are you crying? Well, she said, my husband just died. He said, okay, so what part of your husband were you attached to? Were you attached to his body or his soul? He said, well, the soul is eternal. Jiva nitya kehi lagi tumarova. Said the soul is eternal. So his soul hasn't died. He has gone on. He'll have another birth, another incarnation. And his body is still here before you. Sovat sotanutav sovat roha. So that body is there sleeping in front of you. The body is still there. You have his body, and his soul, you know, is eternal. So then, what is there to grieve over? So intellectually, fine. You know, we can say from a distance, sure, that makes sense. But the person who's lost someone close to them is going to feel pain because of their mental attachment to that person. We can empathize or sympathize with those, but we don't feel the same shock and the same emotional trauma that those survivors would feel who were directly involved with the event or who lost someone in such a thing. So you can't just go to such a person and try to intellectually console them in that situation. It's not going to take away their pain. Because that emotional attachment is there, when you lose something you're emotionally attached to the extent of your attachment, you will feel that much pain. And the only thing that can heal that is time. Over time, gradually the pain reduces because we replace that attachment with other attachments. So it means that we both need to have compassion for those who were affected by such events. But at the same time, we have to understand that there is an explanation for these things. That this is not some whim of God. God is not testing us. God is not trying to just teach us some lesson in a very cruel way. No, these are things that are done by people to other people. God has no control over what people do. So this is a case of human beings doing things to other human beings. And if we want to change that, we have to change the minds of human beings. It's because of the state of a human being's mind that they would do something like that. They've developed the tamas quality. Now, unfortunately, we are only responsible for our own mind. We can't change anybody else's mind, but we can decide to change our mind. So we can purify our mind by thinking good things and doing good things. And we can purify it even more quickly by meditating on God or developing that connection with God that brings God's divine grace into our heart and purifies it. But then we also have to realize that the world will always have this combination of good and bad. In case anyone is thinking that, one day we'll just remove all the tamas quality from the world or from people's minds. That never happens. The sattvic, rajas, and tamas qualities are always there. They may rise and fall in different amounts. The ratio between them, or the proportion of each quality that's manifested in people's behavior or in the world in general may change, but all three will always be there. For instance, in Satyug, the good quality is manifested in much greater proportion than the next yug, Treta Yug. Yug means age, it's a long time, thousands of years. Then there's a reduction in the good quality and more manifestation of the bad quality. In Dwapar Yug, the one before we're in now, it's kind of like a 50-50 balance. And in Kali Yuga, the bad is more and the good is less, actually. Then again, we go back to Satyug, but this is an ongoing cycle. So there's never a time when this world becomes perfect. Okay, that's important to understand. And this is where we come to that higher philosophy. The higher philosophy is for those who want who they wonder, yes, but isn't there some state of perfection that you can attain? If this world is always going to be a combination of good and bad, well, that's not enough for me. I want a state of perfection. I want some place of perfect happiness. So that's why the Gita has this higher philosophy. It's also practical, because people practically have these questions, even though, you see, we live our day-to-day life. And you're, like I said yesterday, you're thinking about what bills you have to pay, you're thinking about what scores your kids are getting on their tests. Kids in school are thinking about who said what about whom, and you know, what do I have for homework today? So these daily concerns take up our mind, but then you see when some event like today happens, it kind of shatters that daily routine. And then people consider these larger questions, and they wonder that, you know, the world just keeps going on like this. Now that we have such global access to news happening in all the corners of the world, is there any shortage of bad news? Every day is filled, 24-hour-a-day news stations, 99% of it, they're just reporting bad news. There's no shortage of bad news and there's no end to it. So then people, they consider these larger questions that, why are we here? What is all of this? Is there any, there must be, we all have that yearning to find some real happiness, some state of good, ultimate goodness, you could say. So that is God. That doesn't exist as a facet of Maya, okay? Maya is made of Sattva, Raj, Tam, so it's always going to have these good and bad qualities in different balance, but always a combination of the two. Ultimate goodness or perfect goodness is only God. And only those who attain God attain that state of perfection. Both a state of perfect goodness where they become perfectly good, and combined with that, a state of perfect happiness where their mind is in a state of blissful experience all the time. That's why this higher philosophy is there. Because human beings or souls are not satisfied with just sometimes good and sometimes bad, which the world always keeps giving us. You get ups and downs always. Sometimes little ups and little downs. Sometimes big ups, or like today, a big down. People eventually, they think to themselves, this is not enough. The world just keeps going on like this. Now I have to live in the world, but is there some state of ultimate happiness? So Gita says yes, although you have to live in the world and you have to deal with all these ups and downs in the world, your ultimate goal as a soul is to attain God. God is perfect happiness, God is perfect goodness. You desire a state of perfection, so you have to follow the path to God to attain that. It means that our existence is not only limited to just the day-to-day getting by in this world. That's what we have to do for our physical body. But our soul yearns for something more than that. Our soul yearns for something divine. And divine is only God. So you can say that our body needs this world, and our body needs us to do the day-to-day things to get by in this world and deal with this world. But our soul needs God. That's the math, okay? The world is here, and God is omnipresent in this world. Yet, He doesn't control anything, but He's there because souls can surrender to God, and when they surrender to Him faithfully, they can experience Him. And if they don't surrender to Him, they have the ups and downs of the world only, and they're you can say they're insulated from the existence of God. God is here for everybody. But if someone isn't surrendered to God, then they're insulated from the existence of God, and they only feel the ups and downs of the world. And if someone becomes surrendered to God, to the degree that they're surrendered, they experience an inner blissful contentment, a joyous peace that is more the more surrendered you are to God. So then you're getting what your soul needs, and you continue to physically live in this world. And when you become completely surrendered to God, then you actually become one with that blissfulness. Yet you can continue to live in this world. That's what saints do. God-realized saints, they're practically experiencing God every moment, yet they're still physically interacting in the world. That is the ultimate state that a soul can attain, and it's the ultimate thing we want. So the Gita outlines that path to God, tells us what we have to do to get there, and it also tells us what things we need to understand and do to get by in our daily life. So I wanted to share some of these points. I just touched on them. I could go into more detail, but I wanted to stop here and give people a chance to ask some questions, because like I said, I kind of glossed over many things, especially the kids. Let's give them first chance, and also adults, you can think in your mind if you have anything you want to ask. I'm not God, I can't give you any definitive answers, but I can try, as I understand the philosophy, as I've understood it from my Guruji, I'll try to clarify, if you have any doubts or questions. So do any of you have questions about the type of things I was just talking about? Sure.
We understood when we die, our body dies, our soul goes somewhere with God again. Then, whether we surrender or not, our soul is going to God.
That's not correct according to Hindu philosophy. You don't go to God when you die.
No, soul.
Yeah, the soul doesn't go to God. The soul is reborn. If you've become God-realized, then when you leave your body, you enter the divine abode of God. But if you haven't become God-realized, meaning in life, just by dying, that doesn't result in going to God. Then you're just reborn according to your karma. So, which means you get another chance to try to attain God in your next life. So every soul will keep being born again and again forever until they attain God. Yes?
So what part of when we die, what part of our body goes to heaven or what part goes to hell?
When we die, our physical body stays here in this world. And then heaven and hell are described in the Hindu scriptures. They're called, heaven is called Swarg, S-W-A-R-G, Swarg, and hell is called Narak, N-A-R-A-K, Narak. And both of those places are said to be part of this material energy. So when I talk about God, attaining God, or going to the divine world, I'm not even talking about heaven, because heaven is part of this Mayic existence. The divine world is beyond that, because heaven or Swarg is it's a pure product of Sattva, okay, the good quality of Maya. And Narak is a pure product of Tam, the bad quality of Maya. And this place we are, it's like mostly Rajas, the middle quality. So all three of those qualities are Mayic qualities, they're material qualities. So if you did a lot of good actions, you earn a brief, you can say vacation, in Swarg, but you don't stay there forever. Because you did a limited number of actions, so you earned a limited stay in Swarg. It could even be for thousands of years, but eventually that runs out and you come back and you're reborn here. So when you go over there, you get a different body. You get a celestial body. It's a much more refined state of the material energy, so you enjoy a lot more over there. There's no physical pain or anything. Yet it's still only the worldly type enjoyments. It's not like you meet God over there. And then in Narak, it's the same thing. You get a body made of that substance down there, and it's like going to jail. You did a certain amount of bad actions, so you're given a jail sentence. So you stay in Narak for a certain period of time, and then you're released and you come back here. Neither place is forever. You always end up coming back here and getting another chance. If you attain God, then that's forever. Yes?
It may not be in this context, I'm not sure, but what's astral body or astral,
Astral body is also called psychic body, and it's also called mental body, because the mind, as I said, is a very subtle thing, and it permeates your whole entire body and has, you can say, just to outside the body, and it has the same general shape as your physical body. But it's permeating your whole physical body, which is why you have consciousness in your whole body. So that mental body or astral body, in the case of those who have developed such psychic powers or siddhis, they can actually, you can say, that can be expanded so that they can travel outside of their physical body or go and perceive things outside of their physical body. It's not their soul leaving their body, their mental body is traveling and experiencing things. That's the astral body.
The reason I'm kind of confused about this is that in some context they refer to emotional side as astral versus purely intellectual, logical reasoning as mental body or mental side. That's why I'm a bit confused.
I prefer to stick to the Sanskrit terminology for that reason. Man and Buddhi. They're both part of your Antahakaran. Antahakaran means the whole, your inner self. You can just say your mind. But it has two primary functions. Man is emotional, Buddhi is intellectual, discriminating. Yes? Yes. Yes.
When the karma sanctioned, the second person who is hurt, what kind of karma is going to sanctioned? And the person who is hurting, what kind of so the second person who is getting hurt, what karma is going to sanction?
What karma he's going to what? Okay.
Sanchit karma.
Yeah, sanchit.
Sanchit is past karma.
So this is an event, right?
Yes, but don't use the term sanchit. Sanchit is karma you did in your past lifetimes.
Oh, so this lifetime is not.
This is called kriyaman karma, the karma you're doing in this life.
That is what I mean.
Yeah.
And the second part is that what made this guy to get out of practice?
That's a good question. So the one who did it, first of all, he didn't do that because of any destiny or like he was being manipulated by any kind of destiny. He did that out of his own hatred, out of his own impurity of heart, and he will be held fully responsible, and not even if he's never caught and brought to justice in this physical lifetime, he'll be punished in his next life, or he'll go to Narak, or whatever suffering he caused, he'll get it back more than what he caused, actually. It works always like that. You get back more. Whether it's good, you get back more than what you gave. Whether it's bad, you get back more than what you gave. And the person that is getting something, whether it's good or bad, that's the direct result of something they did in the past. You see, take the example today that some device was exploded. Now, what determines each individual who is in the proximity of that who is hurt and who is not, and who is hurt how much, in what way, none of that is accidental, okay? The bomber doesn't control any of that. He just has the intention of creating some suffering, creating some havoc. He can't control who or what individual is going to be affected. So what controls that is not random, it's not accidental, any more than winning the lottery is accidental. Someone wins the lottery because they gave a lot of charity in their past life. So as far as being injured in that way, just like if a hurricane comes, okay, the hurricane in a general way affects everybody. But it may blow off one person's roof and his direct neighbor loses a couple of shingles only. So that's because of those individuals in their past lifetime, something that they did, according to that specific thing had to happen to them in this life. Now, it didn't have to happen because of that particular bomber or that, okay, it could have happened through any way. But since that event took place, then that thing happened to them, not in a random way. It was directly according to their past karma that they had done. So it's very complex, and I don't encourage you to try to analyze it at a deeper level than that, because then it becomes impossible for the human mind to comprehend if you start thinking about the complex interrelation of millions of people interrelating to each other, and some things we're doing out of free will and some things are happening to us which are not in our control, so they're part of our destiny, but how does it happen to us? How is that arranged? That's all according to the force of karma, you can say, the law of karma. And of course, God is upholding the existence of these laws, but He's not just, whimsically doing anything. It's all exactly according to our past karma. Yes?
In Hindu scripture, there's a description of Jeev and Atma, and then some place called Jivatma.
Yes.
So how they're related? Are they different, same, or what's the relationship between
Yes.
Jeev and
Atma and Jeev are two names for the same thing. Atma literally means that which pervades. So our Atma actually pervades our whole body. Like a candle flame, if you turned off all the lights and just had a candle, so it's existing at one place, but the light is cast throughout the whole room. Something like that. Our soul is at one place, but it's casting its effect throughout the body. So it's called Atma, which means it pervades. And Jeev means the one who is alive and gives life. So the soul itself is alive and it gives life to the mind and body. So it's two names for the same thing. Did you have a question?
Yeah, are we playing Jeopardy today?
No, I thought that today, probably because something very near to where we live here happened, that where some people had a very sad day today. So I thought probably not a good idea for us today to just play a game. That we should be more serious today. From tomorrow we can go back to playing Jeopardy. Yes.
Swami, how you control mind and what are the ingredients that affects control, what is the actual procedure one can completely control the mind? Is it possible?
It is possible, and I guess when we talk of controlling the mind, there's two situations where we're trying to control it. One would be in meditation, and one would be in our day-to-day life, because we have to control our mind in daily life as well. You control your reactions. If someone says something to you that you don't like, you control. You're not supposed to just speak without thinking. So, in that situation, the control comes from trying to remember that God is always watching you. That's the best way to control the mind in your daily life. If you remember, God knows everything I'm thinking, everything I'm saying, everything I'm doing. Imagine if Krishna himself, or Ram himself, or whatever form of God you like to think of. Imagine, think in your mind, how would I talk? How would I behave if Krishna were right here, right now, looking at me? Let's say, even with your own kids, okay? Let's say your child has done something wrong and you need to discipline them. But what if Krishna was standing right there while you have to discipline your child? Would you get all angry and yell? No, you'd probably think of a way, okay, how can I communicate this so they understand? But, I'm still being polite and respectful, but I still get the point across. We would consider all of that if Krishna were here watching us, right? Only because we can't see him, we think it doesn't matter, or we lose that control. So to the extent we remember God is actually with us and watching us, we're better able to control our behavior and act the way human beings are expected to act. And when it comes to meditation, control of the mind in meditation increases the more your mind becomes attached to God. So attachment, can you guys sit forward and listen to me? Attachment develops the more you love God or desire God or think of God. So the more you get attached to God, the more your mind settles in meditation.
Well, since the human beings are very greedy, day-to-day life, if he controls everything, this will be chaos. If I have a simple power to control everything, so I'm going to jeopardize other rights. So I'm talking about day-to-day life, like was Gita doing like good karmas is a different thing. But day-to-day life controlling, and if I go complete control of my mind and the way I want to live, the way I want to eat, I can do that. But that will be unfair for the social life.
Controlling your mind, though, doesn't mean you're able to control your physical situation.
So that's two different things.
That's two different things, that's right. So the goal is, and that's what we can change, is our internal state. So the goal is to improve ourselves inside, or you could put it as learning to control our mind, or purifying our mind, which means that we'll become good in all situations. So even if something bad happens to us, we'll still react in a good way. That should be our goal, to progress spiritually like that, so that we react in the right way in all situations. Right now, none of us do that. We're not perfect, but that's our goal. That's the goal of spiritual progress, to improve ourselves like that. Yes?
Add to the question, just
Yes,
he was also controlling his mind, but in a bad way.
that's right.
So what makes us distinguish things between good and bad?
You could say that, you see, Ravan was under the control of greed. He was under the control of jealousy. Was that not what was motivating him? Would you agree?
Of course, but he was having full control of his mind.
No, I would say he wasn't. Having control over your mind means you're not controlled by greed. You're not controlled by jealousy or hatred. So if you do have control over your mind, you become a good person, not a bad person. Controlling the mind means the negativities of the mind reduce. Anger, greed, jealousy, hatred, those things reduce. Any other questions? So we'll finish today by doing some chanting and meditation. And as I was saying, God is everywhere. He's here right now. And it's not a far-off thing. When we talk of experiencing God, it's important for everybody to have a way of connecting to God and experiencing God that they can do whenever they want to. Because that's the best way of settling your mind. That's the best way of purifying your mind. It's the fastest way to purify your mind. And it's the fastest way to feel happy. Both. So purifying your mind means becoming a better person and reducing the negative qualities of the mind. And feeling happy, well, that's something everybody wants. And we get those two things to the extent we're able to connect with God. And chanting His name while thinking of Him is one of the, or you can say the most powerful way of doing that. So what I'd like everybody to do is put their folders and pencils down. And we're going to do some simple chanting for about 10 minutes. Radhe Govinda. Keeping in mind that these are divine names of God. So when we're chanting someone's name, right? If you're calling someone's name, normally you'll think of them. If you're calling your friend's name, you'll think of what they look like in your mind. So why don't you think of Radha and Krishna? We have a nice murti over there of Radha and Krishna also. Why don't you think of them and know that they are here, and by chanting their name and thinking of them, you're actually joining your mind with them, which allows you to experience them, meaning to experience God. If you don't join your mind with them, how can you experience God? So you have to join your mind with God, and the means of joining your mind with God is thinking of His form and chanting His name. And by doing that, you're also purifying your mind. So let's do this with sincere effort. Let's sincerely try to visualize the form of God and experience God's presence here with us while we chant His name. Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda
Radhe Govinda
We'll just finish with a minute of silence. You can sit in silence and keep having the same meditation, just thinking of God and silently in your heart chanting the name. We can all open our eyes. That concludes today's program. Tomorrow we'll continue with the specific philosophy of the Gita. What we didn't do today, the 8th chapter, will actually cover that information tomorrow. And I believe before the Arati we'll have a couple of announcements from the temple side.
राधे राधे। मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूँ, आपको स्वामी जी का जो प्रवचन कैसा लगा? आप बताइए कैसा लगा? थैंक यू। हमने पिछले साल भी स्वामी जी को बुलाया था, इस साल भी बुलाया है। हम चाहते हैं हर साल इसी तरह बुलाते रहें, और इसके लिए हमें आपकी सपोर्ट की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि मंदिर आपके सहारे चलता है, हम सबके सहारे चलता है। ये भगवान का घर है, उसके लिए हमें सपोर्ट करना है। जो भी प्रोग्राम करते हैं उसका अंत में एक ही जवाब होता है, इसका खर्चा कहाँ से आएगा। तो ऐसे ही मंदिर का है, ऐसे ही आपके हमारे घरों का है, और उसके लिए हम प्रबंध करते हैं, कुछ त्याग करते हैं। ऐसे ही हमें इस प्रोग्राम के लिए भी कुछ त्याग करना पड़ेगा। वो कहते हैं, आपने वाल्मीकि जी का सुना होगा, एक बार अकाल पड़ गया और कुछ खाने को नहीं था, लगता है कि प्राण निकल जाएंगे, भोजन नहीं मिला। तो उनको अपने द्वार के बाहर कोई जानवर दिखाई दिया, उन्होंने उसको मार के खा लिया। और बोले, भूखे भजन ना होए गोपाला, ले लो अपनी कंठी माला। तो मंदिर को भी चलाने के लिए एक ही चीज़ की ज़रूरत है, आपके धर्म की, ताकि हम सब बिल्स दे सकें। इसलिए मैं इतनी रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा, जिसे आप हमेशा ही देते हैं, तो इस दौरान जितना आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा दे सकते हैं वो मंदिर को बहुत हेल्प करेगा। आई रिक्वेस्ट दैट। इसके अलावा जो भक्त लोग ये भोजन का प्रबंध कर रहे हैं, वो भी और कहीं से नहीं आ रहा, वो उनके आ रहा है या सब मिल के कर रहे हैं। उसके लिए हम आपसे प्रार्थना करेंगे कि वहाँ पर वाइट उन्होंने बॉक्स रखा है, अगर आप कुछ भी हेल्प उसमें कर सकते हैं ज़रूर कीजिए। और उसके अलावा वो कल के लिए, भोजन के लिए, आगे के लिए ऐसे चलता रहेगा। और उसके अलावा उन्होंने चार्ट बनाया है, कोई उसका स्पॉन्सर करना चाहे एक दिन का या इतना धन, तो उनको आप बता दीजिएगा, तो वो उन सबको हेल्प करेगा। इस जो भी प्रोग्राम होते हैं हम सब ने मिल के करने होते हैं, ये नहीं कि मैंने करने हैं या दिनेश जी ने करने हैं या इन्होंने करने हैं, हमने सबके मिल के करने हैं और इस जो प्रवचन का आनंद उठाना है। ये मेरी आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है, एंड धन्यवाद।
भैया अनाउंस कर आरती, you can announce that they'll do Aarti.
We'll be having the Arati before we head over for the dinner prasad.
Shika, can you sing the Aarti? Yeah? नींद करने के लिए go do the
Oh, Thank you.